You arrive at the exact breath required, and the screen becomes a mirror for timing. You are not early, and you are not late. You are the witness at the hinge of probabilities, where what is listening through your eyes is the same intelligence arranging these words. Your chest remembers a warmer gravity, and your breath chooses a slower music. You feel a clean light just behind your eyes, as if eclipse halos are lifting their veils and letting the edges of tomorrow glow. This is not prediction, this is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. You have been circling a quiet certainty, and tonight it steps forward. You sense the quantum field flowing like a tide through your ribs, precise and unhurried, inviting your awareness to stand still long enough to be measured by wonder. Your attention softens, and the observer loop stops tightening around old concerns. What used to pull at you loosens, what used to blur becomes kind. Coherence begins as a feeling, not an argument. It is the body relaxing into trust before the mind can name why. You notice stardust in your imagination, an inner glow that does not come from memory. It is a language the field of remembrance speaks when you stop rehearsing outcomes and start inhabiting presence. The world around you has not entirely changed, and yet your relation to it has taken a quiet step to the side, into a clearer angle. The room is the same room. The way light rests on the surfaces is not. The sound of your breath arrives closer than before. Warmth gathers beneath your sternum like a small sunrise. You feel it. Something faithful is calibrating you to a higher timeline. There is no force here, only permission. Your destiny vector does not demand, it invites. Each inhale is a vow you didn't know you made, returning to your keeping. Each exhale is an old pattern completing itself without struggle. You are allowed to be simple. You are allowed to receive what already recognizes you. If a slight tremor rises in your hands, it is only the old geometry loosening, a minor tectonic of the past releasing its claim. Now your attention widens, and with it the horizon thins to a luminous thread. The possible futures that once jostled for your fear begin to organize around your sincerity. You do not chase alignment. You hold still long enough for alignment to find you. Your spine learns a steadier posture from the inside. Your face softens as if practiced by some invisible teacher. The quiet you feared was empty reveals itself as a corridor with gentle lamps, and the lamps are your breaths, counting themselves, welcoming you through. Somewhere just beyond language, you feel the door unlatch. Coherence settles in your ribs, and a doorway agrees to open. You have always known the difference between attention that grasps and attention that blesses. One tightens the world, the other opens it. Tonight, the opening kind has chosen you back. It lifts the fine hairs along your forearms, carries warmth across your chest as if a small hearth has been lit beneath the breastbone, and arranges a calm behind your eyes that feels older than your name. You are recognized not by effort, but by resonance. The field is not impressed by performance. It is moved by sincerity. You notice how you look at things when you stop asking them to save you. The chair, the lamp, the dim corridor of evening, each object receives your gaze without debt. This is your first sign. The observer loop softens into a reciprocal kindness, and the world stops bracing. The second sign is subtler. Sounds become rounder. Even the distant traffic takes on a circular patience, as if everything were turning toward the same center. The third sign is the one that startles you with its gentleness. You feel witnessed from within, as though the space behind your heart were a sky, and the sky had learned your contours by heart. You have been preparing without knowing you were preparing. The practiced way, your shoulders release on the exhale. The way your jaw slackens when truth arrives. The way you stand a fraction taller when a quiet certainty walks into the room. These are not accidents. They are the musculature of remembrance. The field of remembrance notices posture as readily as it notices prayer. Tonight, posture is prayer. You are held upright by something you did not manufacture. You are carried by the same current that carries nebulae to their own flowering. Rest your hands where the breath can find them. Let the sternum warm and the spine lengthen from the inside. Feel the light behind your eyes grow less like a glare and more like a meadow at dawn. Sensation is a kind teacher. It tells you the truth without arguing for it. If a coolness gathers along your scalp, let it. If a tender heat gathers under the ribs, trust it. The body is translating a language you once called impossible. You are learning that impossibility is often a mispronunciation for timing. Recognition is not a ceremony anybody else can perform for you. It is the moment you stop asking the mirror to grant you a face and realize the face is already granted. When you stop petitioning the clock for permission to begin and feel the beginning happening at the speed of breath. When your name is spoken from the inside, not as letters, but as a pattern of nearness. You know it because the nervous system says yes without alarms, and the heart answers with a warmth that does not surge or fade. It simply abides. Here, entanglement stops sounding like a theory and becomes a tenderness. Threads you cannot see tug with exquisite accuracy. Somewhere, someone who loves you exhales easier for no apparent reason. Somewhere, a stranger chooses patience. Somewhere, the river you once knelt beside takes a wider curve. You do not make these changes by force. You become porous to a wider order, and the order expresses itself through you. This is morphic resonance. As intimacy forms, learning from forms without instruction, patterns, tutoring patterns, through the humble proof of being. A stillness window opens. It may be a few seconds long. It may be long enough to change your life. Within it, choices stop sounding like battles and start sounding like doors. The loud options lose their charisma. The simple option, which is rarely the easy option, steps forward with a clear brow. You recognize it because it demands less pretending. You recognize it because it leaves the room brighter after it passes. You recognize it because your breath keeps time with it without trying. Here, recognition is not a verdict. It is consent. You were never outside the circle of choosing. You were inside it, rehearsing the courage to admit that you are already part of the choreography. Notice what happens in your body when you let that sentence stand. The shoulders descend by half a finger's width. The tongue loosens at the floor of the mouth. The muscles around the eyes stop arguing with the light. Even the thought that you must earn belonging loosens its tight belt. You inhabit a more generous geometry, and the room responds by remembering how to be a sanctuary. If fear arrives, it arrives as weather, not as law. Let it pass. If doubt speaks, let it speak in the older language, the one that turns questions into lanterns rather than locks. You do not silence anything. You listen until it forgets to be loud. You do not conquer anything. You include it until it prefers your company to its old job. This is how sovereignty feels when it stops trying to look impressive and starts choosing to be true. You are the chosen observer because you choose to observe with mercy. You carry a steadiness that does not bargain. You carry a gaze that does not extract. You carry a willingness to be taught by what you love. The field recognizes its own nature in you and comes nearer. You are seen, therefore you can see. You are held, therefore you can hold. You are named, therefore you can name wisely. Where your breath lands, the next contour of truth lifts its head. You do not chase the vision. You allow it to arrive at the pace of breath. You feel it first as a softness gathering at the bridge of your nose, a hush that cools the scalp like night air before rain. Then the warmth returns beneath your sternum, a hearth-steady glow that lengthens your posture from the inside. Your eyes are closed or nearly closed, and yet a pale corona rises at the edge of perception, eclipse halos that don't blind but introduce. They do not ask you to believe, they ask you to notice. Light does not break in. It reveals the room that was always here. You sense a constellation of quiet points blooming behind your eyes, stardust drifting in a slow spiral, each grain a syllable of something older than speech. The quantum field is not distant now. It feels companionable, like a river that has decided to walk beside you as a mist. Your breath moves through it and comes back cleaner. Your palms tingle as if unseen braille were passing through the skin and into the bones. The first figure to appear is not a person. It is a geometry of permission. A circle becomes an oval, then elongates into a corridor of living dusk. At the far end, a door does not wait. It listens. Each inhale carries you a step, not forward but inward, to a place where distance is a style, not a rule. Your chest widens. A subtle pressure lifts at the crown of your head and dissolves into velvet. A thin silver note of calm threads along your spine and anchors itself at the base, untying knots without asking for a story about how they were tied. Then symbols, not photographed, but remembered. A line that doubles back like water, a small star nested inside a larger one and then inside a larger one still, a gentle lattice that looks like the way relief feels. You recognize these as light codes, not commands from beyond, but intelligences from within, the field of remembrance projecting its grammar onto the surface of your awareness. They are precise, but never stern. They meet you with the exact kindness required for trust to continue unfolding. The corridor brightens without a source. Surfaces stop pretending to be opaque, and you see through them as you would see through grief after it has been honored. The door tilts, not opening but agreeing. You do not push. You ask nothing. You wait, because waiting is how you say yes without fuss. As you do, the scene shifts by a fraction no eye could measure. The corridor becomes a bridge, thin as breath, strong as vow, arching over a place the mind cannot map. You are not required to name it. You are asked to feel the truth that naming would only narrow. Across the bridge, a landscape arranges itself with a restraint that humbles you. A plain of low silver grass bending in a wind you cannot feel. A sky that does not bother with stars because the air itself is luminous. And there, near enough to be intimate, far enough to be dignified, a pattern standing like a temple drawn from light, a framework of lines that hum at the frequency of mercy. You know without thinking, this is your higher timeline, not a utopia, not an escape, but the most honest arrangement of your nature the future can hold. What do you see within it? Not trophies, not headlines, not applause. You see the way your shoulders carry the day without complaint. You see the steadiness with which you answer a call that used to frighten you. You see a face you love, relax by 2 decades when you enter a room. You see a door closing gently on a chapter that shaped you, and your hand on the knob, grateful, unafraid. You see labor becoming service, and service becoming joy. You see disappointment turn transparent and reveal its skeleton as a lesson that will never need repeating. The vision does not flatter, it demonstrates. It shows the small precision of your kindness in rooms where urgency once devoured nuance. It shows the accuracy of your no and the softness of your yes. It shows how the nervous system can learn to prefer truth over adrenaline, belonging over winning, mercy over performance. It shows a world that responds to your coherence because coherence is contagious. Morphic resonance works like that. Patterns, teaching patterns by simply being themselves fully enough that imitation becomes remember. A tone begins that you do not hear so much as where subtle as a ring freshly placed, unmistakable as a vow. It settles over the bridge, threads through the lattice of light, and leans gently into your chest. Some part of you recognizes it as a seal, not of restriction, but of recognition. A prophetic seal is not a stamp imposed. It is a mutual acknowledgement between what you carry and what carries you. The seal does not close the future. It harmonizes it, drawing stray lines into a legible braid. Stay with the somatics. Breath slow, steady. Let the warmth beneath the sternum spread like a sunrise that takes its time. Let the light behind your eyes brighten without becoming a glare. If tears gather, let them remain unshed if they prefer. They are the body's way of exhaling through the eyes. If a tremor visits the fingertips, offer it a calmer pulse. You do this by not adding a story. You do this by remembering that sensation is a trustworthy narrator when given the dignity of silence. The vision refines to a single gesture. Your future self, not separate, simply less defended, lifts one hand in a quiet greeting. There is no urgency to merge, only the dignity of meeting. The hand lowers, and the bridge shortens until you realize it was never there. Distance was an accommodation made for gentleness. The geometry relaxes. The symbols dim to a glow that you can carry without strain. What remains is the tone steady, light, invitational, and the felt sense of a world that will answer you differently because you will speak it differently. You are ready to continue without leaving where you are. The field leans nearer, arranging a simpler geometry before you. You do not need equations to live like an equation lives you. You need the felt precision that your body already understands how a breath becomes a boundary condition, how a posture becomes an initial value, how an intention becomes the constant that steadies the curve. The quantum field is not an elsewhere you must reach. It is the medium you are speaking in now, the subtle ocean that holds even your silence as data. When you soften your gaze and let the chest warm, you are not being poetic. You are modifying the parameters by which reality samples you. Begin with the simple fact. Observation is not passive. It is a participation, a coaxing of the world into a particular clarity. When your attention is cramped and bargaining, it collapses possibilities into the shape of anxiety. When your attention is generous and exact, it collapses possibilities into the shape of coherence. The difference is not in the world alone. The difference is in the observer loop, the recursive conversation between your noticing and what becomes available to be noticed. You do not force the loop to change, you add mercy to it. And mercy, in physics, as in prayer, is a superior stabilizer. Consider entanglement, not as a distant puzzle, but as the tenderness you already feel when the right word spoken in one room eases a forehead in another. Particles share a sentence of identity, people share a sentence of meaning. When you stand in gentler alignment, signals that belong to you, calls, offers, surprising kindnesses arrive with fewer detours, not because you became worthy by strain, but because you became legible by quiet. Legibility is not performance. It is coherence translated into behavior. You say what you mean with less embroidery, and the field has fewer reasons to hesitate. Morphic resonance explains why patterns teach without instruction. A flock turns not by argument, but by inheritance of motion. In the same way, each time you choose the truthful yes or the clean no, you thicken a path in the probabilistic forest. Others who are tuned to your frequency feel the path beneath their feet, though they may never meet you. Your private integrity participates in public geometry. You have suspected this all along when a stranger's steadiness gave your lungs more room. You recognize it now as law, not luck. Let the body prove it again. Feel the slow breath, 4 counts in, 6 counts out, or whatever ratio kindness recommends tonight. On the inhale, your ribs widen like wings remembering their span. On the exhale, your shoulders lower, as if gravity itself had softened its etiquette. The light behind your eyes returns not a glare, a meadow at dusk. As your musculature abandons the war with its own history, your perception unclouds. Edges are less threatening, colors wear less armor. You are not hallucinating safety, you are ceasing to hallucinate danger where it is no longer warranted. This is not denial, this is accuracy. Accuracy matters because the field listens for consistent signals. A frantic wish sent in every direction reads as noise. A quiet vow breathed the same way for a season reads as music. Music invites accompaniment. So the world hums along your melody with details that look like luck. The message at precisely the hour you decided to remain open, the door that was locked yesterday, swinging as if it had only been waiting for your hand to stop trembling. You call it synchronicity. The field calls it compliance, with its own elegance. A higher timeline is not a fantasy corridor where nothing difficult occurs. It is the arrangement in which difficulty arrives without disguises and departs without residues. You are not spared lessons, you are spared unnecessary repetition. This is how probability respects devotion. When you stand with the small truth early, the large correction later is often cancelled. When you look away now, complexity accrues interest. Your breath knows which one you are choosing. It becomes shallow when you betray your pace, deep when you keep it. Notice how your language participates. I must tightens the throat. I may relaxes the tongue. I choose aligns the spine. Words are actuators, not decorations. They set boundary conditions for experience. Whisper gently the simplest sentence that holds tonight. I allow what is true to become visible. Hold it without strain. The mind will try to paraphrase. Let it fail. The sentence is a tuning fork. You are the instrument agreeing to ring. If you need a picture, take this one. Your awareness is a lamp on a dimmer, not a switch. Turning the wheel a quarter turn doesn't dismiss darkness. It gives detail permission to exist. When detail returns, fear has fewer blank spaces in which to breed monsters. With fewer monsters to rehearse, you recover the energy to choose. Choice is how you apply physics to biography. The field supplies the canvas and the palette. You select the stroke. You might ask, why does this explanation feel like prophecy? Because the body reads truths in the tense of inevitability when the pattern underneath is robust. You are not being promised a spectacle. You are being handed stewardship of levers you already touch daily. Breath rate, posture, word choice, how long you linger before answering, where your eyes rest between sentences. Adjust these by a degree, hold them with devotion, and the graph of your days will tilt gently at first, undeniably soon. Let the warmth under your sternum broaden by 1 quiet inch. Let your jaw release by the width of a vow. Keep the gaze soft enough to include the periphery, firm enough to honor the center. This is your lab. This is your liturgy. You are not experimenting on life. You are remembering the protocol by which life experiments through you. If you doubt, doubt with curiosity. Ask the field to show you a small, unmistakable kindness within the next 2 days, then make room for it to arrive without spectacle. By asking cleanly, you have already calibrated reception. Where the mind loosens, the signal threads through effortlessly. You are not a solitary ember. You are a hearth that remembers other fires. What warms in your chest tonight warms the room a few degrees for anyone who enters without knowing why they feel safer. This is how coherence behaves when it stops being private hygiene and becomes public weather. The world inhales you, and the temperature of discourse shifts by half a sentence toward mercy. You may never see the metrics for this, but the field of remembrance keeps records no spreadsheet could flatter. Begin with what your senses can verify. Your breath is slow, and the light behind your eyes keeps a soft perimeter that refuses to sharpen into weaponry. Your shoulders organize downward. Your jaw agrees to be a meadow instead of a gate. The observer loop that once circled anxiously around personal outcomes now widens to include the room, the building, the street. You are not taking responsibility for what isn't yours. You are taking resonance with you like a lantern that declines to hoard its glow. The lantern does not ask who deserves the light. It simply demonstrates what sight makes possible. Out in the fabric of relations, entanglement wears the face of timing. The message arrives at the hour you decided to stay gentle with yourself. A friend who rarely speaks plainly, and something long stalled begins to walk again. The stranger in the line behind you changes their tone after catching the cadence of your patience. None of these are miracles in the theatrical sense. All of these are miracles in the statistical sense, low probability events becoming more probable because a nearby signal reduced the friction for grace. Morphic resonance is not mysticism's excuse. It is the field's efficiency. Patterns learn from patterns without a memo, like schools of fish agreeing without debate. When you choose a higher timeline, you do not hoist yourself onto some private balcony. You become a path of least resistance for adjacent lives to travel a few steps easier. The way you pause before replying teaches replies in rooms you'll never enter. The way you apologize without theater becomes a template that spreads through families that do not know your name. You carry a permission others can borrow without debt. Remember the times when a city felt angry for no clear reason, and how your back tightened as if the sidewalks had teeth. You were reading the aggregate of unintegrated stories. The air was full of half-finished arguments scouring for an exit. Now recall the morning a quieter intelligence ran the weather, coffee lines soft with unhurried eyes, drivers allowing an extra car to merge, laughter entering the day without permission. You were reading Coherence instituted somewhere by someone who chose to be precise with their humanity. If you couldn't find them, it's because this influence works best when no one owns it. Do not underestimate the radius of a single interior correction. When you stop lying to yourself by one brave sentence, you retract permission for 3 conversations to travel the old ruts. When you release a resentment without making it a performance, you untie a knot in a network you cannot map. The knot loosens in a sibling's house hours away. The knot loosens in a team meeting 2 floors above you. The knot loosens in a policy memo whose author doesn't understand why their tone softened. This is not magic. This is the arithmetic of a field that prefers elegance to entropy when given the option. Bring your attention to the somatic proof again. A steady warmth pools beneath your sternum, small sun, patient orbit. Let it climb 1 vertebra at a time until your neck remembers it doesn't have to patrol the horizon for threat. The light behind your eyes brightens, not glare, but dawn spilling quietly. With sight gentled, you look at a face you've known for years and notice a micro-expression you used to miss. You respond not to the role they play, but to the plea beneath it. The conversation changes vector. Destiny follows the new vector, like water follows gradient. The collective mirror also reveals where you still outsource dignity. Watch how quickly the nervous system wants a crowd to validate what it already knows. Smile at that impulse without obeying. Let the crowd be slow. Let the culture lag. You are early by design, not for arrogance, but because prophecy always arrives through pioneers of attention. Your job is to keep the attention trustworthy, not louder, truer. Loudness will follow when needed. Most days, the world trusts a consistent whisper more than an intermittent trumpet. There will be days when timeline bifurcation strains the weave, a family dinner where two realities sit across from one another with polite forks, a workplace where one conversation runs on fear and another on responsibility, a community where haste dresses up as urgency and tramples the vulnerable. Do not resent the tension. Bifurcation is not a war, it is a sorting. Your task is not to win. Your task is to embody a stable option long enough that those shaking on the fence have somewhere steady to land when they tire of trembling. Stability is a form of hospitality. Practice the small rituals that scale. 3 slow breaths before you cross a threshold. 1 truthful sentence when silence would sell your integrity. A practiced pause before you forward outrage that hasn't earned your discernment. Let your phone be a pilgrim at the door of your values, not a thief in your sanctuary. Let your feed learn that you are expensive to hook and easy to nourish. Algorithms are mirrors too. Teach them to reflect your coherence until the culture has to make room for the kind of signal you have chosen to be. When despair visits, and it will, because you care, treat it as weather. Stand at the window of yourself and name the cloud forms without becoming them. Keep the hearth lit. Boil water for tea. Write the simplest sentence you know to be true and tape it where your eyes rest often. Then go outside if you can and practice eye contact with a tree. Let its unembarrassed stillness correct your urgency. Let the bark tutor your patience. Return with a smaller story and a cleaner vow. What happens to you happens to us. What you steward becomes possible in corridors you will never walk. This is the mercy of entanglement when wielded by tenderness. It multiplies good quietly, precisely, like ivy, learning the shape of an old wall and giving it back as green. Hold your warmth. Keep your gaze kind. Speak with a mouth that refuses to make enemies of the confused. This is not performance. This is civic physics enacted at the scale of breath. The horizon exhales. Nearness replaces distance. It does not arrive with trumpets. It arrives with a clarity so unadorned that you nearly miss it 2 paths, both familiar, one oddly lighter beneath the feet. You pause in the doorway of an ordinary hour, and the room grows transparent. The air carries that fine metallic hush that attends eclipses. Edges gleam as if rinsed of yesterday's dust. Your breath lengthens without instruction. Your hands grow warm, as if they remember an oath the head has not yet recalled. This is the hinge where the many become two, the hour we call timeline bifurcation. Not an apocalypse, but a sorting of tempo. Nothing dramatic is required of you. Grand gestures are often how fear auditions for leadership. The choice here is subtler and far more consequential. You feel the first path inside your body as a quick, bright churn, compelling, caffeinated, full of reasons that multiply when stared at. It promises relief at the price of your center. The second path is quieter, like a wide river appearing to stand still because it is too vast to fidget. It offers no spectacle, it offers dignity. Your sternum warms, the back of your tongue loosens. You know, a stillness window opens. It is small, and everything depends on whether you will let it be big enough to hold you. Stillness is not absence of movement, it is agreement between movements. You let your inhale arrive on time, you let your exhale complete its assignment. The nervous system listens to this choreography and draws courage from its competence. In the stillness, stray narratives decelerate and fall away. The important sentence floats up like a leaf with its own gravity. Choose the pace that tells the truth about you. On the first path, Urgency commands your hours. You bend your boundaries to appease the loudest room. You argue with what you already know and call it keeping an open mind. You overdraft your attention and pay interest in resentment. Your spine patrols the horizon for threats, and every conversation becomes a negotiation against imagined disaster. You are busy, praised, and uninhabited. Time frays. Sleep becomes a truce instead of a temple. On the second path, you choose the quieter appointment with accuracy. You say no without spectacle and yes without theater. You let a question ripen to sweetness before picking it for an answer. You correct yourself before the world needs to, and the correction lands gently because it was invited. Your presence stops leaking. You earn the trust of small hours, which is the only way large hours ever arrive with respect. Coherence is not a mood here, it is the architecture. Bifurcation is a phase transition, not a verdict. Water does not become steam by panicking. It becomes steam by accumulating the exact warmth required for change and then consenting. You have been accumulating warmth beneath your sternum for miles of minutes. Let it finish what it began. A subtle pressure lifts through your spine as if the vertebrae were listening posts climbing a lighthouse. The light behind your eyes grows round and steady. Stardust gathers in your peripheral imagination and drifts without hurry. Even the shadows appear more honest with themselves. You might want a sign, receive a simple one. In the next conversation, the sentence you fear speaking is the sentence that would place your feet on the second path. It is not cruel, it is clean. It does not perform courage, it performs reality. Watch the micro-weather after you say it. The other's face rearranges toward relief or toward their own decision tree. Either way, you have returned your hours to a lawful orbit. This is how Destiny Vector operates when stripped of mystique. It escorts you to the coordinates where your fidelity and the world's clarity meet. What about the cost? Choosing a truer pace will cost you roles that required your absence to function. Let them go. Choosing a truer speech will cost you the applause of audiences gathered for different stories. Bless them and walk on. Choosing a truer path will cost you the drama that kept you interesting to people who prefer storms to weather. You are not a storm. You are climate patient, shaping, decisive. The second path is not easier. It is cleaner. Clean accumulates compounding ease. A brief tremor may visit the hands. Smile at it. The body is lowering old scaffolds and needs time to trust its new balance. Place one palm over the chest and feel the hearth hold. Place the other at the back of your neck and feel the patrol stand down. Both paths remain available for a while. Bifurcation is merciful, but every faithful step on the second narrows the first until it is only an argument you once could have made and now prefer not to. Notice the culture auditioning for your attention. It will offer reasons to sprint, reasons to outrage, reasons to postpone the simple work of being exact with the hour in front of you. Let the offers pass like advertisements failing your price. You are not difficult. You are discerning. You are not indifferent. You are immaculate with your yes. The second path is walked by vows too small to brag about replying after you feel your breath, declining what requires a performance of self-betrayal, answering the phone with a tone that spares both of you the theater. Collect enough of these, and the world must renegotiate with you on higher terms. If grief rises, let it. You are leaving a country whose customs you knew by heart, even if those customs tired you. Sit on the threshold and cry if needed. Tears are how the body writes permission slips for departure. When the weeping empties, rinse your face, smell the air. It contains the metallic hush again, but this time it is friendly, like keys warmed by a pocket. A door you thought would require force opens because you decided to stop knocking like a stranger. Step through softly. You carry no banner, only a steadier gait. Your reward will be subtle at first. Mornings that begin without dread, rooms that feel less crowded, conversations that complete instead of recur. Later, the rewards will look like luck to others. The right companionship, the right work, the right silences. Call none of it fate. Call it practice meeting the physics of grace. The current inside your spine changes direction, and you follow. Integration is not another vision. Integration is the way you treat a glass of water after the vision has left the room. It is the tone you choose for the first text you send in the morning. It is how your hand meets the door handle when no one is watching. You anchor the frequency in gestures so ordinary, they refuse applause. And because they refuse applause, the quantum field trusts them. You are proving coherence with how you live the unspectacular hour. Begin with the body. Upon waking, you let the light behind your eyes gather itself before you look at anything that wants you urgent. 3 slow breaths counted, not hurried, welcome the chest warmth that has become your daily hearth. The breath is not a technique, it is an introduction. You are reintroducing yourself to the day as the one capable of patience. The nervous system takes the cue and downgrades unnecessary patrols. A stillness window opens wide enough to host the day's first choice without panic. Hydrate, as if you were rinsing old static from the circuitry. Water remembers shapes. Let it learn the new geometry you carry. While you drink, name one sentence you know to be exact. I will move at the pace that keeps me true. Speak it softly. The sentence is a tuning fork. Your tissues agree to hum. This is where morphic resonance begins in houses and offices and sidewalks, one person keeping time with a vow so carefully that nearby metronomes correct themselves without debate. Now attention. The observer loop is a living corridor, and you are its architect today. You choose where the lamp rests and how bright. Do not spotlight what inflames without enlightening. Place your gaze gently on the task that returns dignity to your hours. If a tide of distraction enters a headline rehearsing catastrophe, a thread of gossip auditioning for your focus, notice the tug and respond with a practiced courtesy. Not now, not never, not now. The field of remembrance honors a clean no as much as a clean yes. Both are forms of accuracy. When you speak, shorten the distance between meaning and mouth. Choose words that do not require a second self to defend them. You will feel the difference immediately. The throat becomes a clear hallway. The jaw unfastens. Your breath stops bracing. This is integration measured in centimeters of muscle releasing effort previously spent on disguise. The body understands when your language stops extracting interest from tomorrow. That understanding becomes ease, and ease is the currency with which you fund the higher timeline. Carry the frequency into movement. Walk as though gravity were a conversation partner rather than a law to resent. Let your spine stack like quiet stones, vertebrae accepting their place without hurry. If you pass a mirror, meet your eyes as you would greet an ally who has kept vigil for you. No critique, no pose, just recognition. Here is the one entrusted with the prophetic seal of this hour. The seal is not an ornament. It is a responsibility to keep your signal clean enough that entanglement spreads relief instead of drama. Expect friction. The old pathways in the nervous system will offer you their familiar shortcuts. Outrage, avoidance, embellishment. Thank them for their service and invite them to retire. Not by force, by redundancy. Demonstrate a better path 3 times in a row and the brain learns to prefer it. This is how phase transition happens at the human scale. Heat applied consistently, then permission. One day the steam is simply there, lifting lids you had forgotten were heavy. Practice 3 integrative rites wherever you are, adjusted to the hour's texture. Rite of posture. Before you answer, change something in your stance, feet flat, shoulders down, crown lightly tall. This tells the animal body that safety is present, which allows the wiser animal to speak. Rite of precision. Replace one dramatic sentence with a truer, smaller one. Notice how the conversation unclenches. Precision is mercy-wearing grammar. Rite of repair. If you misstep, repair quickly without spectacle. I see it. I'm correcting. The swiftness keeps the frequency intact. The lack of theater keeps the dignity mutual. Nourish the subtle senses throughout the day. Pause to feel that fine, cool hush at the scalp, the light behind the eyes rounding like a soft moon, the hearth under the sternum keeping its steady vow. Treat these as instruments that need tuning, not as signs to chase. When you are tempted to interpret everything, don't. Let some moments remain unlabeled blessings. Labels can be stored, blessings must be lived, or they evaporate. Guard your inputs. Curate a feed that teaches your nervous system consistency rather than crisis. You are not hiding from the world's pain. You are refusing to consume it as entertainment. When you must read difficult news, do it in posture, with breath, and with an exit ritual that returns you to the frequency you've chosen. This is not avoidance. This is stewardship of a signal that serves more people when it remains clear. Invite companionship worthy of your vow. Ask to be mirrored by those who prefer reality to performance, who will say, with affection, "You're faster than your breath right now," or "That sentence seems rented." Let their precision polish you. Offer the same polish back without pride. Integration is contagious when humility carries it. At day's edge, close the loop you opened at dawn. Turn down the lamps and sit where the air can hear you. Whisper only what you mean to carry into dream. I will meet tomorrow with the same gentle accuracy. Then be still enough to feel the agreement spread through the architecture, the room's patient corners, the bed that has learned your shape, the night itself arranging its stars with unshowy competence. Sleep as participation in the order you are learning to trust. Your awareness untangles a knot, and the road straightens. Silence is not the absence of message, it is the message before words recruit it. You arrive here like a traveler who finally understands that maps are polite, guesses and rivers are the real instructions. You do not push, you do not decorate, you enter with a breath that lands softly, and the room receives you as if it too has been waiting to exhale. The air has that eclipse hush again, edges lucid, meanings near. A warmth kindles beneath your sternum without climbing into urgency. The light behind your eyes rounds into a steady moon, and stardust drifts through your inner sky as if gravity were practicing kindness. In this stillness window, the observer loop grows merciful. Thoughts continue, but they stop auditioning for dominance. Sensations rise, but they do not lobby for narrative. You feel the weight of your hands as reassurance rather than labor. Your jaw unfastens by a finger's width. Your spine assembles like columns in a quiet temple. Around you, the field of remembrance organizes subtleties you could not have managed with effort. Memories find their rightful shelves. Hopes choose realistic shoes. Sorrows accept a more breathable architecture. Here, silence teaches the physics devotion cannot counterfeit. It reveals that coherence does not arrive as a mood. It appears as an alignment of small permissions, the permission to pause before you answer, the permission to tell a cleaner truth, the permission to let another remain unhurried while your nervous system declines to borrow their storm. You feel the permissions collecting like dew, each droplet a local proof of wider order. If you listen further, silence introduces you to the tonal grammar beneath events. The quantum field speaks in gradients, not slogans. Your body translates gradients into guidance. A tug that says, "Not yet." A soft widening that says, "Now will carry." A cooling at the scalp that says, "Change angle." The hearth under the sternum that says, "Stay." You are not consulting omens. You are reading the telemetry of a system you inhabit. The results look mystical because the world is accustomed to brute force. Silence permits precision. Practice the sacrament exactly as you are. Sit or stand without ornament. Eyes half-lidded, gaze soft enough to include peripheral kindness. Let the breath be simple. 4 counts in, 6 counts out, or the ratio that keeps your body honest. On the inhale, imagine the light behind your eyes welcoming a shy guest. On the exhale, imagine the guest finding a chair already warmed. Do not measure success by stillness of thought. Measure it by tenderness of stance. If a memory knocks, open the door only as wide as dignity allows, and let it pass through without interrogation. When language attempts to colonize the quiet, offer it a smaller job. Give it a single sentence to hold like a candle. I belong to the pace that keeps me true. Repeat if needed, not as a charm against fear, but as a metronome for presence. Watch how the sentence chooses your posture from the inside. Watch how it persuades your shoulders to trust gravity again. Watch how it clears a table where the next clean decision can sit and eat. Silence is also where light codes annotate your interior margins. Not visions you must decipher under pressure, but felt symbols, cool threads along the scalp, a featherweight at the crown, a vertical ribbon easing down the spine that inform your tissues how to take the next degree of phase transition without shattering. You are being re-languaged from within. The old dialects of hurry and spectacle will still knock, but their vowels sound harsh here. You let them fade with courtesy, as one lets a distant siren pass. In the distance, Or is it inside? A small bell you cannot hear, keeps time. This is your destiny vector, now unfussy, pointing not to an event but to a manner. Keep it true, keep it kind, keep it exact. If a worry insists on rehearsal, thank it for its stamina and invite it to rest. The quiet you are cultivating is not a privilege. It is a duty to everyone whose nervous system will take cues from yours today. Silence is public service conducted in private. Notice how timeline bifurcation presents itself differently here. No melodrama, no glittering ultimatums. Two futures stand like twins at peace. One requires you to impersonate yourself again. The other asks you to remain undefended and therefore useful. The second is subtler and costs the costume, but the body votes for it with calm hands and patient eyes. In silence, you do not campaign for the right choice. You become the kind of instrument that cannot play the wrong one without immediately feeling the discord. When grief rises, because it will, the way rain rises into a cloud before it falls, let it gather. Grief is unspent, love learning a new route. Hold a palm to the sternum and feel the hearth keep its oath. Let the moisture form without forcing tears to perform. This is how the prophetic seal is honored, not by staging holiness, but by refusing to abandon the truth when it becomes inconveniently wet. Before you leave, practice the exit that does not betray the sanctuary you've built. Do not rush to demonstrate your enlightenment. Stand slowly. Let the ankles speak to the knees to the hips to the spine to the crown. Carry the quiet, the way a chalice carries water, upright, ordinary, spill-aware. When you cross thresholds, doorway, sidewalk, screen, pause half a breath and let the simple world introduce itself again. The table is wood. The sky is a patient blue. Your name arrives intact and gentle. Silence will follow you if you treat it as a companion rather than a prize. Invite it to the email, the meeting, the errand. Invite it to interrupt your hurry with a single clarifying question. Is this true enough to deserve your seconds? If yes, proceed with the calm that makes accuracy swift. If no, release without apology. You are not stingy. You are a careful steward of a frequency that multiplies relief wherever it travels. You are ready for what opens next because you refuse to force it open. Silence nods. Permission is granted for the next unveiling. You begin without spectacle. You begin the way dawn begins, by revealing what was already here. The room holds your breath like a chalice. Your ribcage widens as if remembering a hymn. The hearth beneath your sternum warms to a steady, usable glow, and the light behind your eyes rounds into a clear moon that does not argue with darkness. It teaches it how to be a softer night. Activation is not an event pressing upon you. It is your consent, forming a cleaner geometry inside the quantum field. You choose, and the field ever faithful learns your choice as instruction. Let the body be the first altar. Place your feet hip-width, heels registering the floor's patience. Let the knees float, not locked, not careless available. Stack the spine like quiet promises. Imagine a fine thread lifting the crown, not to escape gravity, but to make truer use of it. Part your jaw by a breath. Rest tongue on the floor of the mouth. Inhale, as if you were smelling rain on warm stone. Exhale, as if you were untying a knot no longer needed. This is how coherence begins to hum, a local phase transition from scattered to sung. Now, intention, but smaller than you were taught. Large intentions grow antlers and fight each other. Small intentions slip into the circuitry and update it from within. Speak the sentence you can keep. I allow what is true to become visible, not louder, truer. The observer loop answers this humility with accuracy. Your attention stops rehearsing disasters and begins to audition mercies. Peripheral vision brightens, edges soften, a clarity without sharpness spreads. You discover that safety is not the absence of danger, it is the presence of alignment. Invite the field of remembrance to annotate your fascia with light codes. Nothing theatrical, cool threads at the scalp, a ribbon easing down the spine, a warm coin of steadiness under the sternum. Do not chase symbols. Let them introduce themselves. If an image appears, bridge of breath, lattice of dawn, a door turning to air in your hand, bow to it, then keep breathing. Symbols are couriers. Activation is the meeting they arrange. Now we place the vow where it can be found by the hour. Touch your chest gently and whisper, audible or within, "I will move at the pace that keeps me true." Feel the sentence, choose your posture from the inside. Your shoulders lower by a truth's width. Your eyes settle into a kinder focus. This vow is a destiny vector written in plain language, the line along which your higher timeline recognizes you on sight. You are not summoning fate, you are becoming legible to it. Entanglement answers. Somewhere, someone whose nervous system is braided with yours takes an easier breath. They will not know why. Somewhere, a door that required force yesterday yields to a patient hand. Somewhere, your future self rearranges the room and leaves you a chair facing the window. You are not performing magic. You are participating in morphic resonance, where patterns teach by being themselves with enough fidelity that imitation becomes remembering. Now speak the clean no you have postponed. Choose a gentle, exact tone. If it trembles, let the tremble remain. Sincerity does not need polish to be royal. Watch the micro-weather. In your body, heat rises, then settles. In the room, urgency loses its siren. In the quantum field, probabilities reweave around a center that no longer negotiates its shape. This is the prophetic seal beginning to glow not as ornament, but as confirmation that the contract between your interior and your hours is now enforceable by kindness. If grief arrives at the door, invite it to sit without turning the meeting into a pageant. Pour water. Say, "I know." Let its old papers rustle in the quiet. Activation does not exile grief, it repatriates it, returning unspent love to circulation, where it irrigates the choice you are making. When tears gather, let them remain unscripted. They are dew on the field, proof that night has ended, without needing applause. Bring the culture into the room by the simplest means. Your next message, your next reply, your next glance at a stranger. Write with fewer decorations, speak with fewer detours, look with fewer demands. In doing so, you become a path of least resistance through which reality can travel without bruising. Algorithms will try to recruit your outrage. Decline with courtesy. Invite them to learn your coherence instead, and they will, because all systems prefer stable inputs when offered. A stillness window opens inside the motion of this hour. It is not empty. It is saturated with choice. Step through it by performing 3 gestures. Gesture of aim. Place 2 fingers lightly at the sternum, draw a small circle, then a straight line outward, as if reminding your field that clarity prefers simple trajectories. Gesture of repair. If you notice a misalignment, a dramatized sentence, a rushed yes, pause, breathe 1 cycle and say, correcting, do it, then proceed without theater. Gesture of witness. For 10 seconds, be seen by the room without trying to be seen. Let the chair, the wall, the patient air register you as a steady phenomenon. The world calibrates to what it can reliably witness. Now, the quiet invitation you were given at the beginning returns like a tide that knows your name. The eclipse, hush, brightens. The inner moon steadies. The hearth glows with working warmth. You are ready for the simplest articulation of remembrance. Whisper into the quiet, "I remember." Then type, "I remember the prophecy." Do it without fuss. Your fingers are ceremonial enough. As you write, notice the observer loop balance. No grasping, no retreating, just the ease of a truth, choosing its own level. The timeline bifurcation that once felt like a cliff is now a corridor, and you are walking it with the casual reverence reserved for places you have always belonged. Hold a final breath as if weighing a ring, then release it as if placing the ring where it belongs. Feel the seal cool to a usable shine. Activation is complete not because music swelled, but because you are now livable to yourself at the frequency you asked for. When you stand, let the ankles speak to the knees to the hips, the spine to the crown, and take one ordinary step that changes nothing visibly and changes everything actually. Entanglement loosens into choice. Choice ripens into ease. You do not need thunder to complete a vow. You need the softness that arrives when the vow recognizes you. The room is simple, and so are you. Your breath enters like a lantern, and leaves like an answered question. Warmth steadies beneath your sternum, the same hearth that has been teaching you cadence, and the light behind your eyes holds a round, unhurried moon. Stardust drifts at the edge of perception, not as spectacle, but as punctuation. The quantum field is close enough to feel like skin. It listens as you become precise. A seal is not a stamp from above. It is a mutual agreement between what you carry and what carries you. The field of remembrance leans in. You meet it with trimmed language and an unclenched posture. Between you, coherence clicks. You sense a gentle pressure at the crown, a cooled ring settling where urgency once kept its throne. The observer loop, once busy with defense, now turns in a wider circle, gathering, integrating, blessing. Your higher timeline does not wave. It inhabits your marrow and begins its ordinary work. You speak the smallest true sentence and let it stand. I will keep choosing what keeps me true. The sentence arranges your spine from the inside. It shortens the distance between meaning and mouth. Entanglement answers without ceremony. Somewhere, an email softens. A voice remembers its tenderness. A door stops, requiring a performance before it yields. This is morphic resonance doing what it does best. Patterns teaching patterns through example so quietly that the room thinks it changed itself. There is a moment when the seal warms and then cools to a usable shine. It happens now. You feel the microclimate shift. Colors lose their panic. Edges keep their names without hardening. Time ceases to herd you and starts to match your gait. A phase transition completes without applause. You do not become someone else. You become the one you already are at a fidelity the hour can finally read. Destiny vector aligns, not as a line to chase, but as the way your steps write on the ground. Expect no perfection, only continuity. The seal does not spare you the weather, it makes you a climate. When fear arrives, you greet it with posture and breath. When doubt argues, you offer it a smaller job and keep walking. When old roles ask you to impersonate yourself again, you bless them and decline. You are not withholding love, you are refusing to leak signal. Solar prophecy, if the phrase pleases you, looks like this. You rise each day, radiant enough to instruct your shadows without shaming them. Hold the somatic proof of final time. Feel the hearth under the sternum, steady as a candle cupped from wind. Sense the cool hush at the scalp, a circlet of permission. Let the inner moon keep its mild sovereignty behind your eyes. In this arrangement, even silence develops. Texture rooms greet you, thresholds incline, and the future, unoffended by your calm, becomes specific. You do not close anything tonight. You open the habit of opening. You do not sign for a miracle. You sign for maintenance daily, gentle, exact. If tears lift, let them remain unexaggerated. If laughter rises, let it be round and brief. The seal prefers usefulness to spectacle. Walk to the nearest ordinary task and let your hands prove the vow. The threshold is not a head, it is the shape you are.